Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So my name's Katie and today I'm going to be doing my April wrap up. So I read lots of good books in April and it seems like I read quite a lot. Oh, I know why. Because I had a week off, so I did nothing but read. So I probably read a lot more than I would have done if I hadn't been on holiday. But yeah, I'm pleased I managed to get through a lot of arcs, but then obviously I requested more, so I ended up having more arcs. But now I think I'm down to 4 arcs, which is still quite a few. But it was at 8, and then I got it down to about 2, and then it went back up again. But yeah, no, so I read some really good books, so I'm excited to talk about them. So the first book I read was the Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. So I really enjoyed this. I don't know how it compares to other 2 books because it's been a while since I read them, so I can't really remember if I liked them more, if I liked this one more. But I did think this one was very interesting, and it was a lot more sort of expansive than I was expecting. I think I was expecting it to just be this these 2, like the princess and the handmaiden type thing, because that's sort of how I'd heard it advertised. But actually you get a lot more POVs, which I thought was really cool, and it quite added to the politics and scope of the world. So the main 2 are Malini and Priya. And so Malini is like the princess, but she gets exiled by her brother, who's like the new king, to this sort of monastery type thing. She's basically just exiled, and she's like a prisoner in this monastery. And then we're also following Priya, who is this sort of handmaiden, and she volunteers for the job of going to the monastery and taking care of it. And then she sort of ends up kind of meeting Malini secretly, because Malini isn't meant to see anyone. And then Priya somehow ends up being her personal handmaiden. I can't remember exactly how that one happens, but it does. So yeah, that's sort of how they meet, and I really like the dynamic between them, especially when they first meet. And then how it progresses. I thought that was good, and I always love seeing sapphic rep in fantasy. And we also have this very interesting magic system, and I always love planty magic systems, and I feel like this one kind of is. And they're there's some people who are being changed almost into plants. They have the rot, and so the skin is turning into bark and stuff, which is kind of cool. And they have this water of life thing. So they've been in the water, and then however many times you've been rebirthed in the water, it's your level of power. So Priya and then some other characters were, as children, they were raised in this monastery thing, but then the monastery was burnt down, so a lot of them died, but then a few of them escaped. So that's kind of the backstory. I don't know if I'm explaining this well. It's kind of good just to read not knowing too much anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But I think it's very interesting because Priya's dynamic with her sort of siblings, they're not actual siblings, but they sort of grew up together, was another very interesting aspect of the book, because the kind of villainy character Ashok, he's essentially Priya's brother, and I love complicated siblings. And then they have another sister, Bakima, who's another interesting character. So I thought that dynamic was very interesting. But yeah, in general I thought it was really good. I feel like I just didn't quite love the characters enough for it to be 5 stars, but it's still a really solid book, and I think it explores a lot of themes really well as well. And Tasha Suri's writing is really nice also. It's kind of it's very calming in a way. Even when bad or dramatic things are happening, it's that sort of writing where it's not too flowery and poetic, but it's also not just simple. I feel like it's kind of a nice balance between the 2, and I feel like the writing tone really captures the sort of more botanical elements to the story, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, that's that one. Okay, the next one I read The Steel Remains, which I gave 2 stars. Yeah, I could have ran on for a long time about this book. So I thought this was going to be a queer fantasy, because I think the main character is a Killian in some way. But considering the main character is gay, it was so homophobic. There was so many use of the words, of the slurs, especially the F slur, and queer was used in a bad way as well. Like, obviously it's kind of reclaimed, but it was used in kind of a derogatory way. Which, yeah, and also it just, I can't decide whether it was a gay author writing how they thought straight people would be, or a straight person writing how they thought gay people would be. It somehow managed to be both. Yeah, and there was so much sexualization for women, and like objectification, and yeah, I didn't really enjoy it, and I didn't really even follow the plot that much because I was so distracted. Yeah, there's quite a lot of like sex scenes, and there was a lot of, this is really weird, like slapping people across the face with penises. Don't know where that came from. Yeah, I would not recommend. And I feel so bad because the audiobook narrator is Simon Vance, who also does the Black Prism audiobooks, and I actually quite like his narration, but I feel like he just ends up narrating the worst books. Yeah, so that was unfortunate, but yeah, so that's the series I won't be carrying on with. Okay, and then after that I read For the Wolf by Hannah Witten, and I gave this one 4.5 stars, and I really enjoyed this one. I think I enjoyed it more than I was expecting to, because it kind of, there was the other book, The Wolf and the Woodsman, which kind of has a similar like title and vibe, and I don't think I enjoyed that one quite as much, but this one I really liked. The relationship was so good, and I feel like it takes a lot for me to ship like a hetero couple, but I love them. They gave me major Syrian to Sebron vibes, which, so basically the main character, she is like been told all her life she's for the wolf. So like the first daughter is for the throne, and then the second daughter is for the wolf. So she's being sent into the woods to like, as a sacrifice to this wolf, as part of like an ancient prophecy thing. So yeah, so she's been brought up her whole life knowing she's going to be sacrificed. But then she goes into the woods, and so the woods are almost like a sentient magical woods type thing. And so when she gets there, she gets to this little palace, and the wolf character, I think it's Emon, I don't quite know how to pronounce the name, is such a little cinnamon roll. I love him. Yeah, so I feel like that's where the kind of Sebron comparison comes in. But yeah, then so it's not quite what he seems, and then she sort of ends up kind of teaming up with the wolf to try and like save the forest. And there's these old kings that are like trying to rise. But at the same time, what I thought was really interesting is we don't just get the main POV of Red, who's the main character, we also get the POV of her sister Neve, who is back in like the village, or I don't think it might be a town, where they're from, and she is being sort of manipulated by her kind of advisors, and her mother ends up dying, so then Neve becomes queen, and you can tell she's in like quite a bad position because she's almost becoming the villain, and she's like killing these sentinels, which are then affecting the woods and affecting Red. But Neve is just trying to get Red back, but she's doing it in a bad way. And I just really like the kind of dichotomy, I guess, of comparing like Neve and Red and how they were like going about achieving their goals. I really enjoyed that, and I just love the foresty setting. It's just magical forests. I just love them. Like the forest is probably my favourite like place to be. Like forests and mountains are definitely like my favourite locations. And it was just so like descriptive, and so I just really enjoyed that one. Definitely highly recommend. It's coming out in June. And after that I read Fool's Errand by Robin Hobb, which I gave 5 stars, and I loved this one. So full disclosure, I read the Tawny Man trilogy, which is Fool's Errand is the first one, without having finished the Farseer trilogy, which I would not recommend if you like proper reading orders, because so the Realm of the Elderlings, which is like Robin Hobb's world, there's some of the trilogies follow Fitz as the main character, the first one being the Farseer trilogy, then the Tawny Man trilogy, and then the last one is, I don't know what, the Fitz and the Fool trilogy I think it's called. And then the other ones is the Live Ship Traders, which is another trilogy. That's like the Mad Ship, Ship of Destiny. So I've read all of them. But I read Assassin's Apprentice, but then I never read Royal Assassin or Assassin's Quest. And I just wanted to skip straight to Fool's Errand because I don't know why, don't ask. But I loved Fool's Errand so much, so I definitely want to go back and reread Royal Assassin and Assassin's Quest now. And I know that the Fool is a character in them, so I'm excited because I love the Fool as a character. They're so great. Oh, I love him. And in this book, it's like Fitz is pretending to be Lord Golden, who's the Fool. So the Fool's posing as Lord Golden, which is like a noble, I forgot the word then, noble, and Fitz is posing as his like manservant, and it is such a great dynamic. So I love that, and I love the start of the book as well. Fitz is just in his little cottage sort of reflecting on his life so far, and then the Fool shows up and they have their little moment, their little domestic bliss. And Night Eyes as well, who's Fitz like bonded wolf. I love Night Eyes. And yeah, and the storyline was really interesting as well, especially in the second half with like the Witted. So the Wit's a type of magic, and the Witted are kind of hunted and like seen as bad and kind of killed often. But there's this group of Witted who have kind of gone rogue almost, in their sort of living like as a Witted should. I don't think I'm explaining that well. But anyway, so they kidnap the prince, who is like, he's sort of, the prince is going to be the king, but because he's young at the moment, his mother's ruling as regent, which also I love Katrican. She's great. She's like the queen regent. Yeah, so, and I think she is in the Farseer trilogy as well. So I'm excited to go back and reread that. Or not even read it the first time. Yeah, but anyway, so Dutiful's been kidnapped. So then Fitz and Lord Golden, who is the Fool, go and try and rescue Prince Dutiful, and I just really like that whole storyline. Yeah, so that was good, and the ending just completely like tore my soul out. Oh, and I don't think I was even as attached as I could have been, because I haven't properly read the Farseer trilogy, but I was almost in tears. I think there might have even been a tear or two, and I rarely ever cry at books, but just I was not emotionally ready at all. Oh. But yeah, so I really love that one. And also Robin Hobb's writing is really good. I feel like I didn't notice it as much in the Live Ships books, but there were so many quotes in this one which I really loved. Like there's one, like very near the end, there's like a line which is like, the past is only as far away as the last breath you took, or something like that, and that just really captured me. And there's another one which is like, who was I when all others were stripped away? I don't know, or who was I when all else was stripped away? I don't know, I thought that was really interesting. Like, who are you when you're not who you are to other people, if that makes sense. And then the iconic, wait for you. No, I've always had to show you the way. Now I'm crying. Yeah. So that's my emotional breakdown over for the day. Yeah, just read. I would highly recommend the Tawny Man trilogy, even though I've only read book one. Just Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings in general, I feel like it's very good. Like the Live Ship books are really good. Yeah, but if you want to be emotionally destroyed, read Fool's Errand. I'm not getting through these very fast. I always try to make my wrap up shorter, but it never goes well. Okay, then after that I read Son of the Storm, which I gave 4 stars, and I actually really enjoyed this one. It's very like jungle fantasy almost, especially some of the scenes are set in this like breathing forest thing, and there's these like giant bats, and it's very cool. And the main character, so I really liked how, as I read in the back of the book, there's like an interview with the author, and he was talking about how he wanted to focus on characters who weren't like soldiers and sort of fighty people, which is what you normally see in a lot of fantasy books. He wanted to focus on more of the like kind of scholars and like intellects and like, so that kind of side of things. And I feel like that was what this book did really well. So the main character, I think it's Dancy, I can't quite remember, it's been a while, is like this disaster scholar. He's so cute, bless him. And then we're also following another character, Eshme, possibly. I might have these names wrong. And it definitely begins with an E. And she's like the daughter of this like town fixer who's sort of like Olivia Pope type character. And Eshme is very like power hungry. And throughout the book she sort of has a descent of a villain arc, which I really enjoyed. I love a good descent of a villain, especially if it's like a powerful woman. Yeah, so I love that. And then there's also this other character, I can't quite remember her name, but and she is like, she is sort of from this like other race of people in these islands, and they're like shape changers. So she comes to this like town where it's everyone's living, and causes a bit of chaos, and then but Danso decides, or Danso, I think it's Danso, decides to rescue her. So they end up running off along with Danso's like bodyguard character into this like forest or jungle. So that's kind of that storyline. But then Esme, and there's also this whole thing going on with these like powerful stones. So like the stones give people powers. So Esme is trying to hunt down this like powerful stone, which actually the character who is the shape changer, whose name begins with an L, who I can't remember the full name, but so then Esme ends up trying to hunt them down. So it's all a bit complicated, but it was really good. Especially, I don't know if it was a debut. I don't think it was. I think the author has other books, but this is maybe his first like proper epic fantasy, and I thought it was really solid for like your first stab at a good epic fantasy. Yeah, but I'm really excited to see where the next book goes. So that's that one. After that, I read Flashfire by TJ Klune, which is the sequel to, what is it the sequel to? The Extraordinaries, which I really enjoyed the series. It's just kind of campy, cheesy, like superhero fun, and it just makes me so nostalgic. So I gave Flashfire 4.5 stars, and yeah, it makes me really nostalgic because when I was quite ill, I used to like spend all day just doing nothing basically, and watching like TV shows. So some of the ones that I loved were like The Flash and like Supergirl and Legends of Tomorrow, like the CW ones. And it just gives me that like heartwarming, hopeful feeling. I don't know, there's just something about superhero shows which I really enjoy. Which, having said that, I actually have never watched any like Marvel films, but I did watch WandaVision, which I really enjoyed. And I also kind of want to watch the like Norse mythology ones, which I think Marvel have some, because I know Loki is definitely a character in the MCU, which having read a book later in the video, it makes me want more Loki content, but we'll get to that. But anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that, or what book I was even talking about. Oh yeah, Flashfire. So yeah, it's really enjoyable, and it's just kind of the like cheesy fun. And TJ Klune's writing is really funny. I love Nick as the main character. And I feel like in this book he gets a lot more mature, and sort of reflects on his previous actions, which was really nice to see. And it's just really nice to have like a teen book which is kind of like very queer positive and also quite sex positive. There's a lot of discussions around sex and like safe sex, and I think that's a really good thing to have, especially in teen books. And I feel like it strikes a balance really well, because sometimes in like YA books the scenes are like, sex scenes are very over sexualized and you're like, why is this in a teenage book? But then also sometimes it's a bit too like, I don't want to use the word clean, but there's like, they don't even address it, which I think is not good, because it needs to be addressed, especially if actual teenagers are reading the books. They need to have like, see these discussions and like healthy discussions portrayed. I think is important, especially for queer teenagers as well, because like you don't get any like sex ed in school, so you have to turn to other places. So yeah, I feel like this book had a really good balance. I don't know if I explained that quite as well as I wanted to, but like I think it's something that we need to see in YA, but from a teenage lens rather than an adult lens, if that makes sense. Like I don't agree with the people who think there shouldn't be sex scenes in YA, because I think there should, and there should be like healthy discussions around it, because teenagers are having sex. Like abstinence just doesn't work. I think there needs to be more discussions around like safe sex. That's the important thing, and I think this book does it quite well. And it's like healthy discussions, because I don't think teenagers are the best communicators always. So it's good if books kind of have that example. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that one. I got a bit distracted there. Okay, then I read Way of the Argosi, which I gave 3 stars. And I mean, I enjoyed this one, but like it wasn't anything special. And I don't think it added anything, especially to the like Spellslinger universe. I don't know. So this is like a prequel to the Spellslinger books by Sebastian de Castell. And we're following Ferris, one of the characters, and her like backstory of how she becomes like an Argosi, who's like these kind of traveling people who like do magic tricks and stuff. And I did actually quite enjoy it. I mean, 3 stars is a good rating. Like Ferris is relationship with her mentor character was really good. It sort of a bit reminded me of Kelsey and Vin, like the kind of the character who's like always wanted a daughter. And then this like slightly feral urchin type character. So I did really enjoy that dynamic, but I just felt like, because it was quite short, so I feel like I sometimes struggle a little bit with short books, but it just didn't quite have anything particularly unique about it for me to give it a higher rating. But if you enjoyed all the Spellslinger books like I did, I still think you would enjoy this. So yeah, and there's quite some interesting like philosophical discussions as well, which I thought was interesting. So that's that one. And after that I read Dangerous Remedy, which is the sequel to Monstrous Design by Kat Dunn, and I gave this one 4 stars, and I enjoyed this one. It is like, the series is like a YA, I think it's YA, I'm pretty sure it's YA. And the first one is set in the French Revolution, and it's this like team of characters, they're called the like Battalion des Morts. And they rescue this character from a prison, and she is like wanted by both the royalists and the like people who've risen. I don't know what they're called. Not the rebellion, like the what do they even call it? The revolutionists, I guess. Yeah, so that's kind of book 1, and then in book 2 we're sort of following the after events of book 1. So the characters, the like main 4 have kind of been split up now. And I thought it was very interesting having this split, because we get more time to develop the characters like as individuals, and also the kind of pairings, because one of the pairings, Camille and Al, I thought the development of their friendship was very good in this book. I liked that. And also we get a lot more of a character called James, who in the first book is kind of a villain almost. Not like a villain, but is kind of against the protagonist's side. But in this book we see a lot more of him, and actually he's now like probably one of my favourite characters in the series. And it's also almost Frankenstein-like storyline, because his friend sort of gets resurrected by this like crazy doctor, and becomes this like undead type zombie thing, which I really like that element of the story. And I like the sort of medical science almost aspect to it. That was really enjoyable. And yeah, it's just a good series, and I'm excited. I think it's going to be a trilogy, because the ending I feel like set up for another book quite well. Like there's some good juicy betrayals. So yeah, I'm excited for that. And then after that I read The Girl in the Mountain, which is the sequel to The Girl in the Stars by Mark Lawrence, and I gave The Girl in the Mountain 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I know Mark Lawrence is a kind of a problematic author, so like I don't really want to be supporting his books. But also I really loved The Girl in the Stars, and I really wanted to read the sequel, and I was glad I got an art copy, because that meant I wouldn't have to pay for it, so then I could read it without morally compromising myself. Which is maybe not the best use for an arc, but still. But like, not considering the author at all, I enjoyed the book. The main character, Yaz, she's great, I love her. And yeah, I just love all the side characters. Like there's a side character called Thurin, I really like him. And I really liked in this book, the second half is a very like survival story. And it's so well written. Like I was so genuinely afraid for the characters as they're kind of travelling across the ice and like having to survive. And often in those ones you're like, oh, it's okay, you know they're going to survive. But in this one, even though I sort of knew they were going to survive, because otherwise I guess the story would have just ended, I was still so scared for them, and like things are happening, and like the frostbite, and you could just like viscerally feel the cold like coming off the page. And I had to go and like get a blanket because I was cold. I mean, it might have just been the house was cold, but also I feel like the book was making me cold. So yeah, it almost felt like a book of kind of 2 halves, because the first half they're kind of under the mountain, and like Yaz has been kidnapped at the end of book 1, and so they're trying to like escape from the mountain, and all the characters kind of meeting back up again because they've all kind of been split. But then in the second one they're travelling across the ice. And yeah, and I just thought it was really cool, and like the ending sets up the next book interestingly. And also I think it's interesting because I didn't quite know whether The Girl and the Stars was set before or after the events of like Red Sister, Holy Sister, the other one, Grey Sister. But I think they're definitely set before, because one of the characters, I'm sure I recognise the name, I think it's like Sister Pan or something, and no, it's one of the main characters that we sort of meet in this Scale of the Mountain becomes Sister Pan, I think, because there's a moment when it's like she was gonna, her name would have been Pan because she like whacked someone over the head with a pan or something. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but anyway. But I think after doing some Wikipedia research, my theory from book 1 that Yaz is going to become our best class isn't true. But it was a nice theory while it lasted. Okay, and then probably my favourite book of the month after that, I read A Pale Light in the Black, which I gave 5 stars, and I listened to this one on audio, and it's so good. So it's a sci-fi, and it's kind of, it definitely gave me major like Becky Chambers vibes. The plot kind of starts out almost cookie cutter for The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, but I feel like if you found The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet like not enough plot, I feel like this one has more plot. But basically we're following this crew of, I want to say the Azuma Ghost, but also I feel like that is, no, the Nofet Gloss, I'm sure the ship is called like, that's the Azora, whereas this one's the Azuma. Anyway, so it's the Azuma Ghost, and it's this crew, and they like compete every year in these like Neo G games, which is like the games for the like universe. The universe, I guess, or just the kind of humans that are living in the like area. Anyway, so and it's just this like tournament basically, and so. But the crew, so they are joined by this new lieutenant called Max, who is like coming from, her family is very like, they're a powerful like corporate family, and they like control this product called Life X, which like gives people sort of extended life, and their family kind of has a monopoly on it. But Max has always been like the black sheep of the family. So she joins this crew, so it's very much like her sort of becoming one with the crew, and there's so many like soft moments, and you're just smiling, and like the bonding and like the characters are also great. So then there's also Jenks, who's another one of the characters, and she's like the slightly like wild character, and she's very like got a lot of personality, and then her brother Nika, but Nika leaves at the start of the book to become like commander on another ship because he was the previous lieutenant, so Max is his replacement. So at the start there's quite a lot of like tension between Max and Jenks, but they sort of grow into this beautiful like almost sister bond, and Max and Max and Nika like communicate through letters, and then they sort of end up having sort of like a semi-relationship, and that was so cute. But also Max I think is asexual, which is cool rep, and I always like seeing characters who are asexual but in a relationship, because I think it portrays one side that's not always seen. Like you can still be romantic but just not sexual, if that makes sense. I like that we didn't just get rid of Nika, we still saw him, because I really liked him, and him and Jenks are brother and sister. I don't know if I said that, but yeah, I love their like sibling relationship as well. And then the captain of the ship, Rosa, I also really liked her. She has like a wife and kids back on Earth, which was really cool, and I loved like her relationship with her wife. It was so cute, and then like raising their kids, and yeah. And then there's a few other crew members. There's like Safi, she was like the coder, but I just loved the whole crew. They were all great. And yeah, it was just like them bonding as a team. And then there's also this whole conspiracy going on, because this Life X substance, someone's like creating a dupe, and then but then the dupe is like turning out to be deadly, and there's like all sorts of drama going on, and they're being hunted as well, like they're being targeted, some of the crew. But yeah, so there's a lot going on, and then yeah, there's these tournament games happening, I guess. But anyway, I just really enjoyed it. It was so good, and it's just so wholesome, and like yeah, so I'm very excited for book 2, which comes out I think in about July. So yeah, I would highly recommend that one. After that I read Honey Girl, which I think I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, so this was quite different from what I was expecting. I think I was expecting more of a romance, but actually it's more of kind of like a coming of age, like finding yourself. So we're following Grace, who's the main character, and she's just got her PhD, but then now she's feeling a bit lost in life with what to do next. So she like goes to Vegas and gets drunk married to this random stranger, and then so she's feeling a bit lost in her life. So then she sort of ends up ringing up her wife, who she got married to, but then they sort of end up like chatting, and then she goes to New York for a bit to like live with her, and just kind of, it's really like her finding her like path in life. And her father has put a lot of pressure on Grace, because he's always been like, you have to like follow the plan and like achieve greatness. And I think Grace is kind of suffering under all this pressure. Yeah, and then Yuki, her wife, is a very like a kind of manic pixie dream girl type character. But also, I quite liked her, and I liked her and Grace and their relationship, what we saw of it. I mean, I would have liked to probably see more. But I feel like it's quite a short book. And then Grace also has her friends, who is a very like close, almost codependent friendship. But I thought it was interesting to like see that portrayed. The one thing that annoyed me about the book was Grace. Grace is like, I think has a PhD in astronomy or astrophysics, or something spacey. I think it's astronomy. But I just did not buy that, really. I mean, and I feel bad saying it, because like obviously women, and especially women of colour in science, are often sort of seen as like not as good and having to prove themselves and like looked down on. But there just was zero science in the book, and I feel like the author should maybe have spoken to like scientists or people who actually did astronomy, just to get a bit more like stuff in there, because like it's mentioned that she's doing a PhD, and that's a big like part of the book, but we never know what her PhD is actually like on. Like we never get a title or anything, or not even a title, just like what it's on. Like, even I don't have a PhD, but I have a dissertation, and if I say I have a dissertation, the first thing you ask is like, what was that on? And then it's like, oh, it was on stem cell transplants, but we just never even get that. It's just on astronomy, but like that's such a vague topic. Like it could be on literally anything, and PhDs are so specific. So yeah, that was random. And then like, and there's a bit where she's like been presenting her research, and we don't find out what the research she was presenting. I don't know, it just felt like very, and she never talks about any of the science. I don't know. So I don't really know why astronomy was chosen. I feel like, yeah, to be like mean, she maybe should have been doing like an English like PhD or something, because then I feel like it would have been more, the author would have maybe known what she was talking about a bit more. But whereas I feel like astronomy was chosen because to use like astrology, like references and stuff, which astrology is very like valid, and that's the thing that people like and stuff. But whereas I feel like it might have read a bit more kind of smoothly almost if she'd been into astrology, rather than, and that way she could have used all the like spacey metaphors, because there just wasn't any like actual science. Which I know it's a contemporary book, but it just felt like something was missing because of that. I don't know if I'm making sense there. But yeah, she just didn't really read like a STEM person. I don't know. Yeah. But I did actually enjoy the book. That just little thing annoyed me a bit. But yeah, I would definitely still recommend it. And I think especially if you're not someone who's super sciencey, I don't think that'll bother you like at all. Okay, and then I read the Dragon of Jin-Sayeng, and this is the final book in the Wolf of Aranyare series, and I really enjoyed this one. I think I gave it 4.5 stars, but rounded up to 5, so maybe more like a 4.75, because I think this was definitely my favourite of the trilogy. I don't really want to say anything about the plot, because like it's the last book in the trilogy, but I thought it was a really great finale. Like I said, it's probably my favourite. I love Tali, her character, and her character growth in this book was really good. I loved getting the dragons. The dragons are cool, and the dragon in this one is kind of, because I think in the second one, like Ikiro, one of the brothers, becomes the dragon, but in this one they sort of start swapping it. It's cool anyway if you've read it. And yeah, and I like seeing more of Tali's son in this one. He was a really good character. I think Than is his name, and we've only really like heard about him in the previous books, because he's a big like driving factor in what motivates Tali. But it's actually seeing him in this book, and he's a great little character. I love him. He was probably like one of my favourites. And we're seeing more of Rael, who's Tali's like husband, and he's definitely like men are trash type character. But in this book, I actually started feeling a bit more like sympathy towards him, and I actually kind of started liking him towards the end. Yeah, Kine, I love Kine. He's like one of my favourite characters ever. And we get him in this book as well. I just really like him. I've liked him since book 1. And as well, we see him kind of being a bit of a surgeon in this book as well, which is cool, like a battlefield surgeon. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. If you like the other two, you'll definitely like the finale. And if you haven't read Wolf Baron Yari yet, then do it. So yeah, so that's that one. Then after that, I read Velocity Weapon, which is another one I really enjoyed. I gave this one 4.5 stars also. I listened to this one on audio, and the audio is really good. I like the narrator. I think it's like Joe Jameson or something, and he narrated Boyfriend Material, which I'd read in March. But I really liked him in this one as well. And so in this one, we're following these pair of siblings. One of them's Sandra, and she sort of goes missing after this space battle, and people think she's sort of been lost or like kidnapped by the aliens. But so on one side we're following her brother, who is sort of dealing with the consequences on Earth, and I'm not sure it's actually Earth, but the planet. And so he's kind of on the rise as like a political player, I guess. And then we're also following Sandra, and she's sort of on this ship, and she wakes up and she's like abandoned on the ship, like, and she thinks she's 200 years in the future. And so she's like surviving on the ship on her own. But then there's this AI on the ship called Barrow, who is great. I love a good talking AI character, and he's so like sassy, and him and Sandra's banter is so good. And some other plot, and this book executes plot twists really well. There's some really good ones. And yeah, so Sandra and Barrow on this ship, and then one day this new character comes along, also in like a little pod, and they rescue him, called Thomas, and he is another really good character. And him and Sandra's like relationship, I love that. I really feel like Sandra's the wrong name. It might be Sander, actually, not Sandra. I think it's Sander. That's them. And Barrow. Oh, I love Barrow. Definitely up there with my favourite like fictional AIs. Like Ember, watch out. I just thought it was really good. I love the like space and the sciencey things, and the plot twists were good, and I like the sort of almost playing with time. It was just good. So I would highly recommend that. And after that, I read The Witness for the Dead by Catherine Addison. I give this one 4 stars. And this one is the sequel to, what? No, actually it's not the sequel, a companion to The Goblin Emperor, which I really enjoy. The Goblin Emperor is, it's very like a quieter fantasy, and the main character Maya is such a little cinnamon roll. And then this one we're following Thara, who's the main character, and he is like the witness for the dead, and that's the kind of role that people take on, and they sort of witness for the dead. So when someone dies, they sort of like look after their like body, I guess, and like make preparations for the funeral. And if someone dies like mysteriously, then they'll investigate, or if someone dies and the body is kind of unidentifiable, then they'll try and identify the body and like sort things out. So that's kind of their role. Thara is just kind of living his life as the witness for the dead in this little city called Morrow. And in the first book, he briefly is in that book solving a bit of the mystery in The Goblin Emperor. But in this one, we're kind of following him after that, and he's just like trying to live his life. But he gets involved in this like murder mystery type thing. So this character's found dead, and then they have to try and solve what happened to her. And it's very like classic murder mystery, because this character, who the dead character, she is very like the kind of character who's been murdered, and like she's been keeping like loads of secrets, and she's been blackmailing loads of people, and like all things keep coming out about her, and she was like very ambitious, and she like had loads of male suitors who she just like strung along for their money, and it just felt so like classic. I don't know, so I really enjoyed that aspect. And it's another like quieter novel, and it's quite character focused. We're kind of seeing how Thara like feels about others, and I don't know, I just thought it was really enjoyable. So, and Catherine Addison's writing is good as well. So yeah, I enjoyed that one. I definitely recommend, and I would definitely recommend The Goblin Emperor if you haven't read that. I feel like that's very underrated. So yeah. So after that, I read Sage and King by Molly Ringwald. I gave this one 3.5 stars, but I enjoyed this one. It was quite short, so I feel like I didn't really have enough time to like give it a higher rating. But it was fun. I think I read in the end that the author like it was like Merlin and Arthur type inspired, which it kind of definitely is. We're following two characters, one who's the king, and he's like, I think Zaya, and he's newly like crowned as the king because his family's just all been killed. And he has to travel into the Heartwood, like this secret pilgrimage thing, to learn the secrets of the sages, and the sages are like these magicians. And we're also following one of the sages, Cole, and I really like Cole actually. He was like very adorable. And yeah, so then Cole like is teaching Zaya about the magic, and Zaya's doesn't like magic, so he's kind of a bit prejudiced against the magic users, which the whole kingdom is, and it just becomes this kind of like relationship, and it's quite short, so the main focus is, I would say, on the relationship, but then there's this like evil character who's coming to hunt them down, who ends up being, well, I think we knew this from the beginning, but he's Zaya's brother, like evil brother. So that's kind of the story, but it was enjoyable. I just feel like it wasn't long enough, and I didn't get attached to the characters enough to like get it up to the 4 stars, but I would still definitely recommend it if you're looking for something like quick and fun. Okay, then after that I read The Midnight Bargain, and I give this one 4 stars, and I really enjoyed, no, 4.5 stars, sorry. And I really enjoyed this one. It was like very like Regency romance type, it gave you major Bridgerton vibes, but also it was really like feminist, and I really liked some of the kind of discussions, because it's like women can't do magic and they're not allowed to do higher magic because it can put their babies at risk while they're pregnant. But instead of just not letting women use magic while they're pregnant, they like keep them in collars their whole married lives, so they can't do any magic. So it's like, it's a very interesting discussion, I feel like, and an interesting almost look at reproductive rights, even though it's not exactly that, but it kind of is in a way. And also this idea of how like using magic, they shouldn't be allowed to use magic ever because there's a risk they could be pregnant. But I mean, that's why contraception is important. Anyway, I really like that aspect to it, and it's very like feminist and empowering, and I liked how almost the main focus is the friendship between the main character Beatrice and this other character called Yubeta, Speta, not quite sure how you pronounce that. I liked their like friendship and how that sort of drove events almost. And then Beatrice and the Anthe, which whenever there's a character called the Anthe, I have to think of the Anthe Tridentarius from Gideon and Harry the Ninth, because she is one of my favourite characters. I just love her. But anyway, so Anthe, who is a man in this book, and is Beatrice's love interest, and I like their relationship. I especially like their kind of conversations where Beatrice was sort of challenging him. But I feel like the reason this book didn't get 5 stars because I didn't quite like, wasn't completely like enamoured by their relationship as much as I could have been. Otherwise I think it would have not had that extra 0.5 stars. But I really enjoyed it and would definitely recommend. Okay, and then I read A Wish in the Dark, which I've written 3.5 stars. I feel like it's quite a hard book to rate because it's a middle grade, and I always feel a bit mean. I always generally rate middle grade books higher, so maybe like middle grade rating would be 4 stars because it was enjoyable. It's like a Les Mis retelling. I'm following one of the characters, Bong, and he is in like prison, kind of. I can't quite remember why he's ended up in prison, but like one day he escapes from prison, and then the other character, this girl, she's trying to impress her father, so she decides she's gonna hunt down the like escaped prisoner. So that's kind of the Les Mis-y thing. But yeah, it was a fun middle grade. And we're gonna be discussing it for our Chaos Rising live show, so I think that'll be on Tammy's channel, so I'll try and leave that linked in the description. If you want to hear our thoughts on that in more detail. I feel like I don't really have a lot of thoughts though. I feel like if you like middle grade and you like Les Mis, you'll definitely enjoy it. The characters are quite sweet, although the audiobook narrator was slightly annoying. Especially her voice for one of the characters. It was really like drony and like nasal almost. But yeah, I still think it's an enjoyable middle grade, and I really like this sort of setting. I thought it was quite good, and the like light, the kind of the magic is like sort of lights it's kind of like Tangled type vibes, which was cool. Then after that I read The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Cog. I can't remember the surname. And this one we're following a witch called Agneboda, who from Norse mythology, and she sort of becomes the wife of Loki, and then they have like children who go on to become like the Great Wolf and the Great Serpent. And Hel, I think, who is the ruler of the underworld in like Norse mythology, which is really cool. And I just really enjoyed it. It reminds me a lot of Circe by Madeline Miller. Like, we're following this like female witch who is kind of a bit often forgotten by mythology, but it's actually quite important and like almost a side player in like the main events of the like mythology, but they also have their own story and we're following that kind of own story. So I really enjoyed that, and I really like Loki. I love Loki as a character in general, and I feel like the author captured him really well in this book, like the kind of wit and charm, but like trickstery, and yeah, so that was really good. Yeah, but it's definitely a quieter novel. Like, we're just kind of following Agneboda's life and sort of how she interacts with others, and also her like motherhood is definitely a big theme, and like the sacrifices she will make for her children, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, I definitely recommend that one. I gave it 4 stars. And then finally I read Upright Women Wanted, which I gave 4 stars, which is a quite short, I would say it's a novella. The audiobook was like 4 hours long, and it's very like Wild West, which I think I was in the mood for because I've been watching YN Up, which is like a TV show mainly for Wayhor, who are like a sapphic ship, who I love. If you've watched YN Up, I love Waverly, she's so great, and I love Nicole as well. They're like shit, but yeah. But anyway, back to Upright Women Wanted. So this is really fun. It was like cowgirl sapphics, which who doesn't want that? And it's basically this character who becomes this like librarian thing. I don't really know why they're called librarians, because I feel like there's no actual libraries in the book. They just seem to be going on this like Wild West type road trip thing, and they're actually like secretly smuggling goods for like insurrection. But yeah, it's just really like a character kind of book, I would say. It's just a fun like little adventure. I don't really know what to say about the plot more than that. She's just the main character, Esther. She's just kind of finding her way in life, and she's her previous, like, it's not quite clear if they were actually like lovers, but her previous sort of relationship type thing, the girl Beatrice was hanged by her father, by Esther's father. So Esther's now kind of on the run and like has like regrets about her past and stuff, and then she tries to join these librarians, and then she gets involved with the librarians, and yeah, it goes on this like little quest. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, and I like the kind of discussions around identity and like queer identity. I thought it was cool. Although I think I read in the description it's like set in the future or something. It definitely read like old-timey, get my lasso out. Yeah, so that's that one, and I'm gonna wrap this up here because I've been talking for 50 minutes as usual. But yeah, definitely let me know in the comments what your favourite book that you read in April, and whether you've read any of the books I read and what you thought of them. I would really love to know. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I hope you're all having a great day, and I'll see you next time.